So you have been writing your thesis and you think it's finished, right? You have put the last dot of the thesis and I'm finished. That's the relieving feeling. But there are some things to do when still you need to be doing some things. Let's go through these. The last moment when you put the dot, it's when your draft thesis is ready. I am sure that you are in contact with your supervisor during the process. So your supervisor has been already checking and giving you feedback chapter by chapter. So there is not much left when you put the last dot. Still, you send your thesis first to your supervisor for her or his check. So that is the one thing that you need to be doing. Plagiarism checking. That is the second thing that needs to be done. And also the language check. Now, for the language check, especially the last thesis committee meetings of the calendar and the academic year. So the December meeting and the June meeting are very busy times. My suggestion is that don't wait to send your thesis to language check until when you put the last dot. Already when you have about 30 pages, let's say you have written your literature review chapter and your introduction chapter, send it to language check, and that's going to be with Hannu Rynenen. There is his email there. So you send about 30 pages, couple of chapters to Hannu Rynenen, and it will take some time. Knowing from earlier experiences, that can be about a couple of weeks. So depending on his availability, what he's doing is that he will not be checking the whole thesis. So he will check a sample from your text and then give you feedback saying that you are doing these kinds of mistakes. That feedback refers to the grammar, but it also refers to academic writing, especially YAML reporting instructions. It's good to send your thesis to language check at an early stage, because once you know what kinds of mistakes you are doing, then you correct your style in the rest of the thesis, so you don't need to make corrections for the whole thesis. That is the good point. And at the very end, after you put the last dot, you send your thesis to your supervisor. Supervisor gives the last feedbacks. So assuming that the last time you sent it to your supervisor, she checked, let's say, the first 4 chapters. The last time you sent, when you put the dot, you sent, she will check the discussion chapter, the last chapter, and the description page where you write the abstract. That is very important, abstract, the description page, because that's the page that when the thesis committee members start to look at your thesis, that's the page they will read first. Now, the description page, foreign students write it in English, but the Finnish students must write it in 2 languages, in English and in Finnish. Most of our committee members are native Finnish speakers, so they will prefer, this is for Finnish students, they will prefer naturally to read the Finnish abstract. And I know it's very challenging when you have written the whole thesis in English, that you also write the abstract in Finnish language. It's not just word-to-word translation, so it needs to be written in an understandable manner. So, and I know that especially at the very end, you put the last dot, you are tired, you want to get rid of the thesis, it's the description page is sometimes the page that you don't spend the best of the efforts. So take your time with the description page to make it as good as possible, because that's what the thesis committee members will read the first. And not the last, but that's what they look the first. So what is important regarding language check? You sent already a sample about 30 pages before to Hannu Rynenen. When your thesis is ready, you get the feedback from your supervisor. Your supervisor may suggest some changes on the description page. Once you do those changes, send only the description page to Hannu Rynenen. For Finnish students, this is for both the English and the Finnish description page. So those pages should be checked by Hannu as well. That is very important. As we said, those pages should shine. Those should be, looking very professional in English and in Finnish. So you need to send, after your supervisor's green light, the description page for language check to Hannu Rynenen as well. Now, let us check if Yanni is remembering correctly about the thesis submission date for the last thesis committee meeting. So this is our master's thesis front page. So we have selected the master thesis already. And here we have presentation, submission, and assessment. So number 6 and number 7 are important at this very final stage. Number 6 is for submitting your documents, and number 7, after you get the grade from the thesis committee, you will be archiving and publishing your thesis in Theseus. So that number 7 is important after you get the grade. So let us go to number 6. Yanni was right. 15th of November is the deadline for submitting your documents if you are aiming to have your thesis evaluated in the last thesis committee meeting of this calendar year on the 10th of December. So if there are any students who are aiming for this date, mark the day, 15th of November is your deadline for submitting the final thesis, not the draft thesis. So if you want to reach this day, 15th of November, your thesis must have gone through your supervisor's check, the language check, and also the plagiarism check. So that means I recommend that you are ready with your draft thesis towards, so today we are on 23rd of October, almost this week. You should be ready with the draft of your thesis. And down here, so always check when are the thesis committee meeting dates, and then the one that you are targeting, make sure you know what is the latest day to submit your documents. And here comes the Excel survey. So for the School of Business, there are the instructions what you should be doing. And one of the things to do is the Excel survey, and there is the link. When you fill this in, sometimes it can be that 15th of November, you are hurrying. It can be that some things are missing. It can be that your company assessment is missing, or your peer assessment is missing. Those can come later. We can accept, we can give you some allowance for those documents, but your thesis should be uploaded on the 15th. And no matter what, if you are targeting that thesis committee meeting, you should fill the Excel survey. So that is a must. If you don't fill it on the 15th, let's say you fill it on the 16th, if your study rights are not expiring, if you are not in a hurry, you can easily get the reply from our education secretary, sorry, submit it to the next meeting. So Excel survey is very important not to miss the deadline. So, documents to upload. But before that, let us also have a look at the plagiarism checking. So what is the plagiarism checking about? Now, we have been talking in earlier sessions that this should be your own work. Copy-paste is allowed only for certain exceptions, like, for example, if you are taking a certain definition, if you are quoting some important saying of some person, or if you are writing some part of some legislation, or if you are taking some figure which you like very much, that those are allowed, given that you cite properly the right references, the right sources. Otherwise, all should be written in your own words. And we know that at the end, all the theses should go through this plagiarism checking. That means you send your thesis to the email address that you see there. Whoever your supervisor is, your supervisor's first name dot surname dot yamk at analysis.urkund.com. Now you send it, and the results will not come to you. The results will go to your supervisor. Usually, the rule of thumb is the following. Urkund also sometimes Urkund gives us some percentage. It says X% of this thesis has been copy-pasted from other sources, and it will show part by part what parts have been copy-pasted, and it will also show the links from where it has been copy-pasted. So what we do, we know that sometimes it takes like the list of references as copy-paste or some weird parts as copy-paste. So we give allowance for 5% for such kinds of cases. So if your percentage is less than 5%, no problem. Your supervisor will say, all is okay, go ahead and make your submission to Optima. What happens if it is above 5%? Well, there are two types of cases. If it is between 5 to 20%, your supervisor will come back to you and say, look, this percentage is high. Here is the analysis from Urkund, which shows which parts have been copy-pasted from where. Take the analysis, take your thesis, rewrite all those parts, what can be rewritten. So if it's a definition, okay, you can't do anything. Those kinds of definitions, you need to put in quotation marks. So that also takes it away from the percentage. But otherwise, you need to rewrite all those parts so that your percentage comes down to acceptable levels. And then, once you've done that, you need to resend to the same address the same document, and your supervisor will get the new results, let's say 4%, and will say, okay, now you can go ahead and submit your thesis to Optima. Now, what happens if the percentage is more than 20%? In that case, checking whether the high percentage is really coming from serious copy-paste plagiarism, your supervisor has all the rights to raise the issue to our rector to start disciplinary action, which may end up in the failure of your thesis, which may result in an unwanted situation that your thesis will not be accepted and you should rewrite a completely new thesis, which I think neither your supervisor nor you would be happy about. We have unfortunately had very rarely a number of such cases, which is undesirable. So I am repeating this and suggesting that let's not get into this kind of a situation. It's not nice for anybody, including the rector, to get this kind of a situation. That's about plagiarism. Let's say everything went through your supervisor's checking, Urkun checking, and also language checking. So what you do? Now it's time that you upload your documents to Optima. So here in Optima workspaces, we have the workspace called Like. It starts in Finnish but continues in English. So it is big Like opinnäytöt palautus thesis sub. So this is the folder, or this is the Optima workspace where you will be returning your thesis. Now here under this there are instructions for teachers, and then you choose the master's degrees, and here there are the folders with the dates. So let's say you are aiming on the 15th of November to return your thesis to the last thesis committee meeting, which is on 10th of December. So you go here, and there is the return box for students. Any student can return the thesis there. So what are you going to be returning? Like you return any assignment to for any course, you will be returning your thesis, you will be returning your maturity exam that I just shared with the students who are here. You will be returning your self-assessment, peer assessment, if applicable, company assessment. So 3 assessments, thesis, and maturity exam, 5 documents should be returned to the return box. About those assessments, couple of words. Let me check if I haven't forgotten anything. You fill out the Excel form. You make the maturity exam. I forgot about that. So here today we had the maturity exam of, we heard the maturity exam of Yanni. And every student needs to do the maturity exam and should get the passing grade. So on your transcript, there will be also maturity exam with the passing grade. To get the passing grade, what you need to do, let us go back to our so here at the end of this presenting, giving in and assessing a master's thesis, there is the maturity test. You have the blank template. So use the blank template. Don't use anything else. Don't write it any Word document that you create by yourself. Use the Word template and also follow the instructions for the maturity exam. So the maturity exam can be written in English or in Finnish. So Finnish students have the option to write it in Finnish or in English. Since we are having an international group here, where we share the maturity exams with the students who are in the class, I suggest that if you write your thesis in English, I think it's even also for you easier to write your maturity exam in English, and that will also be helpful for the students here who don't speak Finnish, that they can understand your maturity exam. What do? You write the maturity exam, fine, and you need to present it in one of our thesis seminars here. So you can be presenting it here in the classroom, or you can be somewhere if you are not living in Jyväskylä, and you can present it online as we had in the case of Jan. So maturity test needs to be written. You can write it at home. So it's not like the bachelor's degree maturity exam where the students write it in our studio in front of, in the presence of cameras. So you can write it at home, but you present it here or online. Once successfully done, you get, I will book the passing grade for your maturity exam. Only the exam part, not the presentation, will be uploaded to Optima. Whoever your supervisor is, make sure that when you are approaching the final stages, book the timing with me, as I am running the seminars, that you let me know that you are interested to present your maturity exam here in the seminar. So the next thesis seminar that we have is on November the 27th. So if you are aiming to graduate this calendar year, that is the day that you can still present your maturity exam. Assessments. Now, when you are assessing your own thesis or your peer's thesis, or your company representative is assessing your thesis, use our assessment criteria. So don't assess it with your own words. Unfortunately, we had also some such cases where we needed to ask that please do it again, use our assessment criteria and our forms. So if you go to the link that is shared here, okay, there has been some changes. I need to update this link. So we have our assessment criteria, the Bible. You remember when you started the seminars, the first thing I shared with you was the assessment criteria. That's the Bible you should keep with you. So when you assess your thesis, use that Bible. Just copy paste item by item. For each item, do you think that your thesis deserves the grade of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Just copy paste the text from the grade that you think it deserves for each item into the assessment form. So copy paste is not allowed but demanded, obligatory in your assessment. Don't use anything with your own words. Just use the assessment criteria. That's also what we do when we assess your thesis. Now, what happens? You have made your assessments. You have uploaded your assessments. You have uploaded your thesis and your maturity exam. What happens next? Why we have this big, long period from 15th of November until 10th of December? Well, what happens is that two faculty members, they assess your thesis jointly, and they also make an assessment, a joint assessment. One of those two persons will be your supervisor, and the second one will be somebody else. So those two teachers, they make an assessment and they make a suggestion as the grade for the thesis. I say a suggestion because it's not the final grade. The final grade will be awarded by the thesis committee. So on the 10th of December, the thesis committee gathers. The person from whose program the student is will present the thesis to the other members and will present also the assessment. The members will look, as I said, starting from the description page, and they will say, okay, the suggestion by those two teachers is fine, we approve it. If they approve it, which happens to be the case, I would say in 80–90% of the thesis that comes to the meeting, then your grade will be booked latest the next day in your transcript. But there happens to be some cases that the committee says, well, we don't agree with the suggestion. They may say something else. That case has also happened. What happens in that case? Let's say you have been suggested the grade of 4, but the committee says, no, this is 3. So they give the grade 3, for example. Now what happens, let me also share that with you. In this return box where you submit your documents, when the two teachers make their evaluation, they also put the evaluation into the same return box. So before the thesis committee meeting, you can already check your return box and see who have been the two teachers assessing your thesis and what grade they have suggested. So you can see that. But the committee may not agree with that. So if it is not agreed, you will be informed. They will say that, okay, the possibilities are the following. The committee can say, okay, we accept the 4 with the condition that the student makes the following changes. So they can accept, they can give you a conditional 4, what the supervisor and the second reader have suggested. In that case, you will need to do, if you want the 4, you will need to do those changes and resubmit your thesis. Unfortunately, the decision will go to the next committee meeting, and we have committee meetings every month. So after December, we don't have anything in January, so the next one is in February, but after February, every month there is one committee meeting. So it goes to the next committee meeting where they will say, oh, okay, the student has made the changes, we approve it, 4. Or they can say, well, this is not a 4, it's a 3, and they give the 3. It can be that you don't like the 3. You can think that, oh, you know, I really deserve the 4. In that case, you can make an appeal. You can apply for rechecking of your thesis. So it goes again back to the committee. If that happens to be the case, which is very rare, I suggest that you contact your supervisor and get help about how to proceed. Your supervisor will guide you what to do in that kind of situation. He or she may have also more insights about, can say that, okay, it's not worth doing, or it's worth doing, because it also goes back again to the same committee. And my experience is that the committee will not change their opinion very easily. So there must be really strong grounds of your appeal at that stage. Well, these are the not nice situations. Let us hope that you have not encountered such a situation. All good. You have got your final grade. And then, as I was also telling to Yanni, you need to archive and publish your thesis. However, in doing that, we need to also be careful. In some cases, due to confidentiality situations, it can happen that you don't want to publish it. That's also okay. In that case, you need to bring the printed copies to our educational secretary, uh, and let me say that if that happens to be the case, which is also kind of rare, contact your supervisor, and your supervisor will guide you what to do if you have confidentiality issues. Usually, that is the very unwanted situation that you don't publish any of the thesis. That is theoretically possible, but I would say very unwanted. And if it happens that your thesis will not be published at all, already the thesis committee don't expect a very high grade for such thesis. The thesis committee will already, be on alert that, okay, for whom did you do the thesis then, if it's not going to be published? So there are ways to manage confidentiality situations. So if you think that there is some confidential information, is it possible to avoid or manage it by not revealing your company's name? By saying, for example, this is especially for those of you who are doing the thesis for your company. So your company, your manager, your superior can say, well, there are confidentiality issues, let's not publish it. Is it possible that you publish it by not revealing the name of your company? You just call it case company. If yes, that's a better solution than not publishing at all. Now, if you think about the thesis, what is in the thesis really confidential? I don't think there will be anything confidential in your literature review chapter or your methodology chapter. You don't reveal the secrets of, it's the theoretical world up there. You don't reveal anything about your company. Methodology chapter, nothing about the company. If you are in the methodology chapter mentioning that, okay, it's the case company, and you don't mention the names of the interviewees, let's say you made a qualitative research, interviewed some of the people at your company, you just mentioned that you interviewed manager X, manager Y, manager Z, you don't mention their names. So who can understand what we are talking about? In that respect, the second good option is that you find, if let's say the case company solution is not enough for your superior, you find, okay, what is really confidential? Most probably what is really confidential is somewhere in the results chapter. My suggestion is that, don't reveal any confidential information, first of all. I mean, we are not asking you to, reveal the secrets of your company. Use softly nice round words and avoid anything that you think is confidential. But then still your superior says, oh, this part is very confidential, I don't want it to be shared with anybody. Okay? What you do in that case is that part, what is considered confidential, you remove it from, let's say, the results chapter, you put it to the appendix. So that appendix will not get published, but the rest of the thesis, including, I would say, introduction, literature review, methodology, maybe some part of the results, and probably also the discussion, still, they could be published. So why are we doing the thesis? As you will notice in the first criteria of the assessment criteria, which is the choice of the topic, you are not doing the thesis for your company. You are doing it to solve a problem at the same time, which will be helpful to other companies. So hopefully, it will not be ending up in a situation where you do not publish the whole thesis. There are solutions, intermediate solutions, before that. But if it happens to be the case, well, that is theoretically possible. In these situations, discuss with your supervisor how to manage confidentiality. So, last steps, following the, let us get back to here. So we had number 6. We went through all of these. Now we go to number 7, archiving and publishing. You follow the instructions here and publish your thesis in Theseus. Okay, so you get you have all the instructions there, so I don't go through those. That's done. There is one last thing to do, or two things to do. One, whoever is your tutor, and I think most probably I am your tutor probably now, as I will do with Yanni, after you make your maturity test presentation, will look through your transcript, make sure that all the courses are in the right modules. I know that unfortunately for some various reasons in ASIO, the courses go to the elective modules, what should go to your major module or minor module, they go to the electives, so they should be brought back to the right modules. So your supervisor will tell you, okay, this should go to this module, this to that module, or if you are missing a course, if you are missing something still, that should be done. One of the things is, for example, for the students from 2017, the portfolio that you should be doing, and also for the 18 students for the professional development course. So you should do the portfolio task together with your tutor to get the remaining 2 ECTS from professional development. So those are things that are still pending before your graduation, and your tutor looks at if there is something missing, or if things need to be moved to other modules, and then you contact, for such situations, Saya Kotameki from the student services to make the necessary changes of the courses to the right modules. Last but not the least, when all this is done, you can apply, but you should apply for your certificate. This may be different or strange for students from out of Finland, but this is the way how it goes here. If you have finished everything and you don't apply for your certificate, the diploma will not come to you. We had this kind of a situation with one student 2 years ago, or actually last year. So she finished everything, and then we realized that she hasn't graduated. How come? How is it possible? And her study rights were expired. So what happened after that? She needed to wait. She needed to make another application to get her study rights back. This is bureaucratic. So I'm saying this, that do not forget to make your application to receive your certificate. And here, the link that is over here will take you to the right form to make the application. So when you are finished writing the draft thesis, you put the last bullet, you are not finished. There is still quite a lot of things to do. Well, hopefully at that stage, one day when you are there, you may get back to this video or the instructions, or you go straight to the thesis Elmo pages, and you will find there what you should be doing. And if any questions, if you are troubled, ask your supervisor at the first stage, and she or he will help you out. to remind you what's still missing. So that's all that